improving, I can tell you, but it was not, at all good. It was or it is not at all good, because it looks like that we are picking right now, and because number of tests are going up. So, but the good thing is, I posted also yesterday that the number of tests are going up, but the number of case detection is going down. So that's the good news.
Your area, is it in green zone, red zone?
Entire Calcutta is a red zone, boss.
Full Calcutta is red zone.
Yes, not Calcutta. The all Mumbai, all cities, all major capital of the state is all red zone. Not Calcutta. If you talk about Mumbai, you talk about Chennai, you talk about Bangalore, entire city is red zone, and it has to be red zone.
Delhi is also in the red zone.
Delhi is also in the red zone.
Yeah.
Bhubaneswar is safe.
Dr. Bhirmani, hello.
Yeah.
आप आपका इंटरनेट को जरूर चेक करके रखिएगा. It gets interrupted in between.
What happened?
Your image is getting freezed a bit, Dr. Virmani. So शायद आपका internet instability होगा.
My connection is fine.
Just now.
Pandas is fine. Dr. Goswami is fine. Dr. AK Singh is fine.
Mine is
AK Singh is always fine. AK is always fine.
Thanks goes to all Jio-Fi and all that. Otherwise, somehow I have noticed that Airtel and Vodafone is also not working well. The indigenous product we have to depend upon is the Jio.
Yeah. Jio, yeah.
I'm having BSNL fiber, which is supposed to be the best.
Oh, and that is on paper. That is already on paper, but actually BSNL fiber doesn't work.
Yeah.
Achha, Sameer, one thing, when I opened the link of the question and answer, so I can see, some names are coming, whether they are the people who have logged, I don't know. Jignesh, Danidhar, Nikhil, Jaipal Singh Chauhan, Amit Tiwari. What is happening? Have you opened that link?
I have 7 names which are reflected right now.
Right, 7 names.
7 names are reflected right now.
Okay.
So, in the comment box, they will have the questions coming as the webinar starts.
Okay. I can also see the number. I can also see the number of people logged here and their question, right?
This will be only the doctors who have asked a comment. The total number of doctors logged in will be another link which the technical team must be having. We'll let you know.
Okay. So only the question, those who have raised the question or typed the question, I can see those, right?
Yeah, those are the ones which will come through the comment links.
Okay, perfect.
So we'll be able to listen the question from Dr. AK Singh. Fine?
Yes, they will be able to listen to all of us. They have to type questions in their box, which will come directly to me and Sameer, which I have opened my mobile, which I can see the questions. Then I will reflect to all the panelists, whichever questions are there on my mobile right now. Means the moment we start with the live discussion.
Fine. So how many have logged in by now?
No, logged in at the suite. That's what we were discussing. I am not able to access the number of people logged in. I can only access those who have asked the question.
Okay, so Sameer must be.
So there are number of security codes going on, right?
At the end of the meeting, we'll have a count as to how many doctors have attended this webinar.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Fine.
And we have a stiff competition today because Dr. Mohan and Dr. Sasank is also doing the webinar at same point of time.
Yeah. Dr. Reddy's virtual is going on. Mohan and Sasank are there. They called me to log in there. I'm having a separate session. Yesterday I was in Dr. Mohan's session. Almost 2,000 people were there in Dr. Reddy's program about sulfonylurea.
Yeah, Dr. AK Singh,
So-
I just confirmed with the technical team. They were just refreshing the comment box. So now we'll have the comments pouring in some time.
Okay. Okay, fine. So I'm also keep on refreshing in between.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can get it. Yeah.
We have 3
So,
minutes to go.
yeah.
After 3 minutes, we'll start.
But Jayanto,
Fine.
your chief minister is doing wonderful, boss.
Thank you, boss. We are very secured with our present government. We have
Seriously,
started
seriously.
Yeah, we have started in
We
time, and
we are caught in mess here, unfortunately.
As usual, Didi is always suspicious.
Always, always.
She has thought that initially it was a plan against Bengal, against Trinamool, so she was not very cooperative. Now she has realized, but it is already late. So hopefully you will also come out of the crisis. We pray for that. We pray Lord Jagannath that India should be free of the disease.
Right. Provided COVID-19 is antagonistic to Lord Jagannath.
The temple is closed for 1.5 months now.
Yeah, good. It has to be closed.
Yeah. So we are ready for the question, Samir. Hopefully you'll get question or else we'll discuss among ourselves.
Sure, sure.
Long after Dr. Virmani, AK Singh, and Samik and all of us are together. So we'll be starting discussing about our state scenarios and how the migrant people are going from Odisha to Bengal, from Bengal to Odisha, and Odisha to Bihar, and Bihar to Odisha. A lot of issues with us.
Yeah, today Jharkhand has also done well. They have brought their migrant labor from special train from Telangana.
Yeah.
But all of them will be positive by now. So Jharkhand will also see the upsurge of COVID-19. Dr. Birmani? Dr. Birmani, connection seems to be little delayed.
Drowsy. Virmani sir is getting drowsy.
Connection is freezed a bit, I guess.
Yeah. His photo is freeze, it looks like.
Virmani sir, you call from the mobile, Samir. You call him from mobile to reconnect.
Yeah, I'll do it.
It looks like that he's disconnected. डर गया अपना बीरू शास्त्र बुद्धि even audio is not coming.
Yeah. He's disconnected. So, AK, when are you thinking the problem will be over? June?
Boss, I am not an astrologer. I don't know anything. It is very difficult. All mathematics is wrong in all mathematics is wrong in biology. You need to understand the simple formula.
True.
When you have got a biological disease, there is no role of mathematician. So all calculation will go wrong. Whatever prediction you make or modeling you do, it is going to fail because there are 1,000 factor or more than that on that infectious disease goes on. So it's very difficult to make any prediction at this point of time. But personally, I feel that we are lagging behind. We have not yet achieved the peak.
True.
Dr. Birmani
talk about early. Yeah, now Dr. Birmani we can see.
Yeah, two Birmanis seen. And both are static. Birmani sir, are you listening?
There was some thunderstorms there, so his internet connection got disconnected.
Yeah. Now I'm listening. Yeah, what is it?
Yeah. Actually, in your previous connection is disconnected, so we are worried why you are not seen.
Right.
Yeah.
I think with this is 5 o'clock. Let's start.
5 o'clock. Can I just give a brief talk, sir? Dr. AK Singh, if you permit me, and then I'll introduce. A very good evening to all distinguished colleagues. I'm Dr. Samir Muchala, handling the
now I can
for cardiology and diabetology therapy areas at Zydus Healthcare Limited. At the outset, I'm sure you and your loved ones must be safe and healthy during these trying times. It gives us immense pleasure to invite each one of you today to this panel discussion on COVID-19 and diabetes. The 2019 IDF data suggested that India has already clocked 77 million diabetics. Also, currently the entire world is reeling under the COVID epidemic. To add to our problems, those patients who have diabetes health related problems and have contracted COVID are supposed to have worse outcomes. Hence, to enlighten us further on this close link between COVID-19 and diabetes and to have the necessary measures in mind, we have today with us Dr. Avdesh Kumar Singh, a moderator for the evening. He actually requires no introduction. However, it will be my privilege to introduce him. Dr. Avdesh
Thank you.
Kumar Singh is a senior consultant endocrinologist at the GD Hospital and Diabetes Institute, Kolkata, and the Sun Valley Diabetes Research Center and Hospital, Guwahati. He has a number of accolades in pharmacology and internal medicine. He is the recipient of the T.N. Ghosh Memorial Award and Scholarship for the highest marks in medicine, 1990 to 1995. The Young Achiever Award, Gold Medal at NUCD Bhubaneswar 2020. Sam GP Oration for National RSSDI 2019 at Jaipur. C. Munnichodappa Oration for Karnataka RSSDI 2019. Kanpur Oration for Kanpur Diabetes Association 2019. Lifetime Achievement Award by the DTE Con 2018 as well as 19 at Jaipur. The Bhola Mahato Oration for Jharkhand RSSDI 2018. The M. Vishwanathan Award for Tripura Diabetic Association 2019. He has around 75 publications in international and national peer-reviewed journals, inclusive of 15 meta-analysis to his credit. He is a contributing author for Indian Insulin, Biosimilar Insulin Guidelines, and various textbooks. He is also a reviewer of various reputed journals like Lancet Diabetology and Endocrinology, Diabetes Research and Clinical Practice, Diabetic Medicine, Indian Journal of Endocrinology and Metabolism, and many others. May I invite Dr. Avdesh Kumar Singh to take the scientific proceedings forward and introduce our panelists, Dr. Jayanta Panda, Dr. Anil K. Virmani, and Dr. Sami Goswami. Over to you, Dr. A.K. Singh.
Thank you, Samir, for kind words. We have got three eminent, I can tell you, and experienced physician and diabetologist and endocrinologist in the forum. So I will start with the senior most, faculties and panelists here, Dr. Virmani. Dr. Virmani doesn't need any introduction. He is a very senior physician from Jharkhand and practicing in Jamshedpur right now. And, he is one of the close friend of mine, and he has got a vast experience, pretty senior to all of us here. And his interest in always in thyroid and diabetology in terms of his practicing. And the best part is he's a very good, orator. He's a very good interlocutor. He keeps his audience, to have attention while presenting his data. So I like him very much. The next panelist in the board is our my dear friend, Dr. Jayanto Panda. He doesn't need any introduction. He is, the Munshi ji of, he holds all money of RSSDS. So he's a big man, very powerful man. And right now, professor on SCB Medical College, Cuttack. Of course, he's very dear friend of mine, and he has got a keen interest in diabetes, has published several publications in reviewed journal. And the third panelist needs a special mention. Soumik is very young, bright endocrinologist and very good orator in the younger generation of endocrinologists coming up in Calcutta. Right now, he is faculty and in charge of lab department of endocrinology at NRS Medical College, Calcutta. And he's also associate editor of Indian Journal of Endocrinology and Metabolism. The good part is that he's a very keen researcher, and he has got a very different kind of take, out of box thinking in the present researchers from India. So welcome all of you to this panel. What is interesting to note that before we start any discussion, I can see a number of questions are being thrown into my mobile right now before we have started any discussion. That's the kind of interest I can see people right now. So uh, the first rule of game is, I think Dr. Bhirmani's connection has got some problem. I can't see him right now in my desktop right now. So I'm sure, yeah, so he's coming in between. So what is interesting to note, all of you, that I have seen in my dashboard right now, I can see 15 questions already there into the board.
That's
I will
great.
take all, I will take all these questions during the discussion because this is an open forum. It's good to have, I've actually invited everyone to ask questions even between discussion, and I will actually take all these questions during the discussions as well. So let's start today's discussion. So we have got various agenda, of course, based on COVID-19 and how clinicians should approach their diabetic or hypertensive patient, in managing those who have either contracted COVID-19 or those who are susceptible to contract, means in general population. So I will start with the young generation first. So my question will go to the Somik first. Uh, how do you see now these comorbid, pictures like diabetes, hypertension, established cardiovascular disease, and their relation to COVID? Do you feel that these patients, for example, diabetic patients, are more susceptible to contract COVID-19? Somik.
So you began with actually a very difficult question. It seems easy because we know that people with diabetes have altered immunity. They are prone to certain types of viral infections, possibly certain bacterial infections also. But the data that we have to remember that we are dealing with a disease which is only 3.5 to 4 months old. And there are a lot of asymptomatic patients out there whom we are not taking into these studies when we are considering a study. So as of now, the evidence is very sketchy to say that people with diabetes are more prone to develop COVID-19. If they have COVID-19, they have a worse prognosis. That is more or less certain. But theoretically, yes, they are more prone to develop the infection. But the data still is not robust enough to tell that a person with diabetes is more likely to develop the infection in the first place than a person without diabetes. And of course, I leave the rest to the wisdom of our moderator, if he wants to add further to this.
Well, so I absolutely agree with you. Although the data suggests that diabetic patient, if develop COVID-19, they will develop more severe COVID-19, and perhaps they have got a more tendency to die. Means there is increased mortality in a patients with diabetes. That's very clear. But then the question which I asked is whether uh, patients with diabetes are more susceptible to contract COVID-19 is still $1 million question. I will come to you, Dr. Bhimani. Because if you see the data which is right now available or the meta-analysis which has been done, what they are doing is, and this is not correct, is they are comparing patients with diabetes in one arm and versus the diabetes in the another arm. So that's not the correct data. And they suggest that there is increased odds ratio of contracting COVID-19. What we need to do is to compare diabetic patients with the normal population. Then only we can suggest that diabetic patients are more susceptible to contract COVID-19. And I can say to you in this forum that we have recently submitted a meta-analysis comparing diabetic patients versus non-diabetic patients, and we got that the diabetic patients or patients with hypertension or established cardiovascular disease, COPD, they have got more chance to contract COVID-19 as well compared to the non-diabetic population. Dr. Panda, would you like to say something about this?
Yeah. Actually, I agree to you. As Somik told, till now we don't have any evidence that the diabetics are more prone to get infected with COVID-19. Maybe in an elderly diabetic, 60-year plus, because where the age comes as a risk factor, they are more prone to get an infection. But it is evident from the available studies that a diabetic has a poorer prognosis. They all, not only diabetes, all comorbidities and heart disease, the coronary artery disease, and the hypertension, they rate higher than diabetic in the outcome of the disease. Along with that, the CKD patients, the COPD patients, and patients with cancer, they are also put for a poor prognosis, and the case fatality rate is almost doubled in this group, the people with comorbidity. But what you told, it's a really a difficult thing to answer now. We know, as usual, all diabetics are more prone to develop infection than the general population. But so far as the COVID is concerned, we don't have any evidence now. And as you told, we need a comparison of diabetics and normal population and the chances of infection.
Yeah, Dr. Birmani?
Yeah, I just like to say that when we are considering this, we must consider three populations basically. One is the normal healthy population, as you very rightly said. Amongst the diabetics, we must have two populations. One who are diabetes with poor glycemic control, with or without comorbidities, and one is those young new onset diabetics with absolutely normal glycemic control, normotensive, no comorbidity. Now, there is no controversy about diabetes with poor glycemic control. I think they are susceptible. The only controversy is whether patients who are new onset diabetics and who have got very good glycemic control, are they more susceptible, or is it because the prevalence of diabetes is high in the population that we are seeing more cases of diabetes? That is something that has to be elicited. And I've seen your data that you have presented, and I'm quite convinced, and I agree that maybe diabetics, even normal glycemic control, may be prone or more susceptible to contract this infection.
Perfect. Yeah, so absolutely very valid point. I will come back to you, Somik, and we will dissect out this data a little further, and we will fix the diabetes part first, then we will move to the hypertension and other subject. So now when we are already convinced that diabetic patient suffers from severe COVID-19 and chance of death are higher in patients with comorbidities. Now my question is, have you seen any data where we can make out that there is a difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes in terms of contracting disease or severe COVID-19 or death? What is your take on types of diabetes and their chance of contracting COVID-19 and their severity and the death?
So if you were to ask me, the data with type 1 is even lower. The only available resources are, if you look at the internet, the JDRF website gives some anecdotal reports of type 1 diabetes. But what we know is that an increased incidence of diabetic ketoacidosis has been reported, anecdotal reports particularly from Italy, even in type 2 diabetes as well. So with type 1, although the data is small, we know that the chance of worsening is more. The chance of developing diabetic ketoacidosis is more if they contract the infection, because it could lead to worsening of glycemic control. But since the numbers are very small, they're anecdotal reports, we cannot comment specifically in type 1 like we can do in type 2, that type 2 causes worse prognosis if they develop COVID-19.
Yeah, but Dr. Panda, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I have come across a lot of literature regarding this. Till now, there is no evidence that the type 1 is more prone or type 2 is more prone, and your review also endorses the same. But one thing is clear: uncontrolled diabetes is higher, or maybe in type 2 they have a poorer prognosis than a controlled blood glucose. So to me, both are equally susceptible, but if the glycemic control is not achieved, there are chances they'll have a fatality or very poorer outcome.
Dr. Birmani, your take on that?
Yeah, I agree that at the moment there is no data differentiated between type 1 and type 2. The only thing I like to add is in type 2, because of the associated comorbidities, maybe the risk is more. Whereas type 1 is concerned, since it occurs in younger group of people, with the so-called lockdown, they are bound to have a disruptor in the normal activities. And that can make their sugar go haywire. Their diet will become bad. They will not be able to monitor frequently. They might miss injections. So possibly that reason, that way, I think they may be able to contract it in a more easier way as compared to the type 2.
Well, so, what I perceive feel, and taking the cue from all of the three of you said, at this point of time, we don't have, data in terms of dissecting data into type 1 or type 2 diabetes. As Soumik said, it's a 3-month-old disease. We are still learning, what to take from this. The problem is in, making any judgment on this aspect, whether type 1 or type 2 are more susceptible to contract, because there are a lot of confounding factors associated with that. And I agree with Dr. Birmani, although we need to understand that 55% of our patients are type 2 diabetic, 5% are roughly type 1 diabetes. This is one confounding factor. Second is type 2 diabetes has variety of other comorbid disease like hypertension or cardiovascular disease. They also, in that way, more prone to develop, contract, or have more severe COVID-19. Thirdly, if you see the type 1 diabetic patients, as we all are facing and getting complaints from many of our patients that right now insulin is also not widely available in the way it was prior to the COVID-19. Many patients might be missing the dosage of insulin. These factors has to be accounted for when you are calculating the risk of diabetic ketoacidosis in type 1 diabetes, or chance of getting severe COVID-19 in terms of uncontrolled diabetes. So at this point of time, we are not ready with the clear-cut data whether type 1 or type 2 are they immune or they are more prone to develop COVID-19. But the common sense suggests that if you have got uncontrolled diabetes, as we all panelists are agreeing to, if you have got uncontrolled diabetes, on paper it looks like that you have got a more chance of acquiring infections, like as other infections, whether it is a bacterial or fungal or even flu infections. Any infections, tend to happen much more if you have got uncontrolled hyperglycemia, and with a number of comorbidities adding into this picture. So on this background, it looks like that at any point of time, type 2 diabetic patients seems to have more chance of contracting disease or having more severe COVID-19 compared to type 1 diabetes. But at the same time, type 1 diabetes needs a very careful monitoring of the treatment and blood glucose control. So it's very hard to answer those questions. We have to wait for some time. I'm sure data will emerge sooner or later, and we will be able to know. Remember, if you go back and see the data of SARS-CoV-1 and MERS or swine influenza, we learned about diabetes only after quite some time. And so naturally, for COVID-19, it's very premature right now to talk conclusively, but we are talking that they are more prone to or more severe. But the common sense suggests that this would be the case. All right. So let's come back to from this prevalence and chances of infection to the treatment part. So Soumik, I will take your comments on the treatment modalities. So what is your take? First line drug, again I take it as first line drug as a metformin. What is your take, metformin role in COVID-19? What do you think, it is good or bad? We don't have data, that first the acknowledgement. So what the common sense suggests, and considering the entire axis right now, taking into account the ACE2 entry way, metformin and lactic acidosis, severity of COVID-19, what should be your message in someone, those who are taking metformin, not yet contracted COVID-19, or those frontline physicians, those who are handling COVID-19 with diabetes with regards to metformin?
I think with metformin, we are quite safe unless the patient is seriously ill, unable to take food, has circulatory collapse, is in shock, or has advanced heart failure, advanced renal dysfunction. If the patient is otherwise stable, taking food for mouth, and as we know that most of the COVID-19 patients, 80% of them are quite mild COVID-19. So in most patients, metformin can be continued. In situations which could predispose to lactic acidosis, metformin needs to be discontinued. Other than metformin, I think the other drug with which we need some caution is the SGLT2 inhibitor, because reports of...
I will come to SGLT2 a little later.
With metformin, we can use it safely in most patients. In some, we have to be cautious and discontinue metformin.
All right, Dr. Panda, your comment. We are talking about metformin. I will take one by one. All anti-diabetic drugs.
I agree to Soumik. most of our patient, our Odisha experience also, most of our patient, almost 85 to 90% of our patients doesn't have any symptom at all. Leave aside milder symptom, no symptoms. So in them, if they are already on metformin or they are well controlled with metformin, we should continue that unless there is a contraindication. If their renal function is normal, if their lactate is normal, because those who are in shock, there are chances of lactate going on, the lactic acidosis chances are there. But if those risks are not there, patient is stable and doesn't require, we're not planning for insulin therapy, there is no contraindication in continuing metformin in them.
Dr. Bhirmani, your take?
Yeah, as far as patients who are under good glycemic control and who are asymptomatic, who are COVID negative, I will not interfere with any drug that the patient is taking, whether it be metformin, whether it be SGLT2, whether it be PI. But if the patient becomes positive and symptomatic, I will stop metformin, I will stop SGLT2, I will stop PIO, and try to shift the patient to insulin so that tomorrow when he suddenly deteriorates, because in these patients, you never know when they'll deteriorate. It's better to put him on insulin right from that. As far as the other mild, moderate, severe cases are concerned, the only treatment of choice is insulin.
Okay.
Perhaps
So,
you can also add a DPP4 inhibitor. I think this is one of the other safe drugs that can be contributed.
okay, so it looks like that it's very difficult to differentiate metformin from other. So, Somik, I will come back to you. And will you take on what about DPP4 or SGLT2 and GLP1? Let's not talk about insulin. Insulin, we are not talking. Insulin is always the choice in the emergency or in a sick patient. But then the point remains is you have made a very valid point and divided upon mild, moderate to severe. So, what about someone receiving DPP4 or SGLT2 or GLP1?
So with regard to DPP4 inhibitors, at this point of time, in one line, it is safe to use DPP4 inhibitors. With the earlier MERS infection, there was an issue with DPP4 inhibitors. With this infection, at least till now, the data and all the professional bodies tell us to continue using a DPP4 inhibitor. With regard to GLP-1 receptor agonist, again, if the patient is sick, has nausea, vomiting, the GLP-1 receptor agonist could lead to further worsening. In an otherwise stable patient who is maintaining good control on a GLP-1 receptor agonist, it can be continued. With SGLT2 inhibitors, we have to be doubly cautious because, as I said, there are reports of diabetic ketoacidosis happening even in type 2 coming in from Italy. So if a patient is ill, not taking food for mouth, under stress, just like we discontinue a SGLT2 inhibitor in these patients, patients who are fasting, patients before surgery. Similarly, in very ill patients, SGLT2 inhibitor should be discontinued and something else started or increased to control the blood glucose level.
Dr. Panda, your comment on SGLT2, DPP4 and GLP1.
The indications for initiating these drugs are very obvious. And suppose somebody is on the oral drugs, as usual,